I am Deuti, a truck driver from Frankfurt. To most, the highway is just a means to get from A to B, a ribbon of concrete, tire tracks, and white lines. But for me, it's something else. It's a place where stories breathe, often in the quietest towns, in the smallest cafes, through the eyes of strangers I may never meet again. This story began on a day that didn't seem special. No breakdown, no storm, no disaster. Just a quiet December morning, the kind where the fog lingers a little longer, as if the sky itself hadn't quite woken up. I had a light delivery to make in the Czech Republic. Some medical supplies, non-urgent. I took my time. My GPS suggested a longer route, and for once I didn't argue. I drove through sleepy villages, past frozen lakes, and hills wrapped in frost. Around noon, I reached a town I'd never paid attention to before. Zej, perched gently by a slow-moving river. It wasn't famous. No tourists, no castles, just a bridge, a train track, and rows of houses with chimneys puffing soft smoke into the gray sky. Something about it slowed me down. I parked my truck near the riverbank and stretched. The air smelled like pine and bread. I wasn't in a rush, and that's rare for me. Across the narrow street was a cafe. Small, wooden. One window fogged by steam and old age. The sign read Utisheho Muje, the quiet man. I smiled. It felt like an invitation. Inside, the warmth wrapped around me like a heavy coat. Wooden beams lined the ceiling, low and dark. The smell of cinnamon and coffee filled the air. There were only 5 tables. At the far end, a woman with silver hair was wiping down mugs. She looked up, nodded once, then pointed to a table by the window. I sat at table 3. The woman brought me coffee without asking what I wanted. "Everyone gets the same here," she said, smiling gently. "Unless they don't drink coffee. But you look like you need one." I laughed and thanked her. The cup was chipped. The saucer had a small crack running through it. But the coffee was perfect, strong, smooth, and grounding. I looked around. The place was quiet, peaceful. Just the old woman, a ticking clock, and faint music playing from an old radio in the corner. But what caught my eye was a table next to mine. Also by the window, also table 3. Another table 3? It had a cup of coffee on it. Fresh, still steaming, but no one was there. I stared for a while, curious. The old woman noticed. "That cup isn't for sale," she said quietly, "and it's not a mistake." I must have looked puzzled. She came closer, leaned in a little, and whispered, "Every day at noon, we place a cup there, just in case he comes back." "Who?" She smiled faintly. "Someone who saved a life once. Not mine, but someone's. Years ago." I didn't ask more. Not yet. Some silences deserved to breathe. Instead, I drank my coffee, watching the snow begin to fall outside. There was something poetic in it. A cup waiting for someone unknown, someone perhaps long gone, in a town that remembered without asking questions. That moment changed something in me. The snow was falling thicker now, covering the windows like soft lace. I'd finished my coffee, but I hadn't moved. Something about that second cup, the one left untouched, anchored me to my seat. The old woman, her name was Hannah, I later learned, returned, refilled my cup without asking. I looked up and nodded toward the steaming coffee across the room. "Did he ever come back?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not yet." Then she sat down across from me, folding her hands over her apron. "It happened nearly 30 years ago," she said softly, "before this cafe even belonged to me. Back then, it was run by a man named Pavel, my uncle. He was stern, quiet, but he noticed everything." I could tell this was a story she had told only a handful of times, each word weighed and placed with care. "One winter," she continued, "a boy from the village fell into the river. The current was strong that year. faster than usual. He would have been swept away if not for a traveler passing through. Hannah's eyes drifted toward the window. No one knew the man. He was walking alone, wearing a long coat, boots caked with mud and snow. He didn't hesitate, just dropped his pack and jumped in after the boy. Pulled him out, gave him his coat, and sat here in this cafe, soaked to the bone, silent. Ordered nothing. She looked at me. Not even a tea. I leaned in. Pavel offered him coffee, she said, but he refused, just smiled, and then he left. She smiled faintly. No one knew his name. He didn't leave one. But the boy's mother came every day after that. She always sat at that table, table 3, and every year on the same date she placed a cup of coffee there, waiting. I glanced again at the table. She passed away 5 years ago, Hannah whispered, but I kept the tradition. For her, for him, for anyone who still believes in people like that. She paused, then added, most days no one even notices. You're the first in a long time to ask. I sat there quiet, letting the story settle into the stillness around us. A cup left not out of habit but out of hope, a thank you with no address, a gesture that didn't ask for recognition, just presence. And suddenly I thought, maybe kindness doesn't vanish. Maybe it just waits, like steam rising from a cup, slowly, silently, until someone notices it again. The snow had not let up. It fell softly, steadily, the kind that makes the world feel quieter than usual. The cafe remained mostly empty. Just Hannah, myself, and a few locals who came and went like clockwork, nodding gently to her, but never asking questions. I was about to leave when the bell above the door chimed. A young man walked in, maybe in his early 20s. His coat was thin, too thin for this weather, and his boots were soaked through. He looked uncertain, like someone who had taken a wrong turn but didn't want to admit it. His cheeks were red with cold, his eyes kind but tired. Hannah looked up, no surprise on her face, only a nod. Sit, she said simply, pointing toward the table next to mine. Yes, table 3, the same one, the one with the waiting cup. The young man hesitated. Is this one taken? Hannah smiled. It's waiting. He sat down slowly, eyes flicking to the coffee in front of him. He didn't touch it, just stared at it as if unsure whether it belonged to him. I watched silently, unsure if I was witnessing something old or something new. Hannah came over and placed a bowl of warm soup in front of him. Eat first, she said. Talk after. There was a comfort in how she said it, like it had been rehearsed many times before, like she knew he needed it more than he realized. We didn't speak, I just watched, observed. The man ate in silence. Bit by bit, color returned to his face. His shoulders dropped. When he finished, he sat back and finally, gently wrapped his hands around the cup of coffee. He didn't drink it, just held it. I leaned over. Cold day, I said. He nodded. Colder than I expected. You passing through? He looked at me. Trying to get home. Got stuck. Train's delayed. Lost my wallet. I nodded, said nothing. After a pause, he added, didn't plan to stop here. Just kept walking until this place showed up. I smiled. It tends to do that. He looked at the cup. This wasn't for me, was it? No, Hannah said from behind us, but maybe it is now. The young man's eyes softened. He took a slow sip, closed his eyes. Best coffee I've ever had, he whispered. Then he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small paper napkin, and began to write something. When he was done, he folded it, placed it gently beneath the cup, stood up, and nodded to both of us. Thank you, he said, and walked out into the snow. I looked at Hannah. She said nothing, just moved to the table and lifted the napkin. She read it silently, then smiled. She handed it to me. On it, written in shaky handwriting, Whoever this was for, it reached me, and I'll carry it forward. We didn't say anything else that afternoon. We didn't need to. After the young man left, the cafe fell back into its quiet rhythm, as if it had simply taken a deep breath and then exhaled. The snow had begun to slow. Outside, the flakes drifted gently now, resting delicately on the windowsill. I sat still at my table, holding my half-empty cup. There was something magnetic about that moment, like I just witnessed a thread being sewn into the great, invisible quilt of human kindness. Hannah returned to her counter. I saw her replace the cup on table 3 with a new one. No ceremony, no hesitation, just a quiet act of belief repeated once more. I stood up, but before I left, I turned back and said, "Would you mind if I stay just a little longer?" She smiled. "Of course. People like you don't come to this cafe by accident." I took my seat again. The fire in the corner crackled softly. And then, for the first time in a long while, I felt the need to share something I hadn't told many people. "I once got stuck too," I said quietly. Hannah tilted her head, not surprised, just listening. "About 10 years ago," I continued, "in northern Austria, mountain roads, February, I was driving through a heavy snowstorm, trying to beat a deadline. Not my smartest move." I paused. "I misjudged a curve, ended up in a ditch. The snow just kept coming. My cab heater died within the hour. I wrapped myself in every coat and blanket I could find. But by midnight, I started thinking maybe I wouldn't make it to morning." Hannah's eyes were calm, present. I kept drifting in and out of sleep. Then I heard knocking, not loud, gentle, rhythmic. I laughed softly. I thought I was dreaming, but it wasn't. There was a woman in a red coat, boots up to her knees. Must have been in her 60s. She had a shovel, didn't say a word, just pointed at me and then at the road. She spent 2 hours digging me out. She didn't let me help, just kept waving me to stay inside. When she was done, she handed me a flask of tea, slapped the hood of the truck, and walked back into the blizzard like she'd just finished watering her garden. Hannah's eyebrows lifted, amused. "Do you know who she was?" I shook my head. "Never got her name. I tried to follow her tracks the next day. Nothing. Just snow." There was a moment of silence between us, the kind that says more than noise ever could. "I never paid it back," I admitted. "Not to her, at least." Hannah smiled and poured me another cup. "You're paying it forward now." I looked at table 3 again. I realized then, it wasn't just a table. It wasn't just a cafe. It was a lighthouse, a signal fire, a place where every unseen act of kindness found a quiet place to echo. The next morning, the snow had stopped. It left behind a hush, a kind of blanket over the world that softened every edge. I returned to the cafe, not out of routine. It was far from where I needed to be. But something about the place pulled me back. Hannah greeted me with the same gentle nod. The fire was already going, and the scent of ground cinnamon was stronger than the day before. I sat at the same table. So did she. We didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "You're not the only one who's come back." I looked up. She stood, walked to the counter, and opened a small wooden drawer built into its side. From it, she retrieved a thin, yellowed envelope. It had no address, just one word written in careful, heavy pen strokes. "For the one who asks." She handed it to me. I looked at her, unsure. "I don't know what's inside," she said. "My uncle left it there before he died. Said it was for someone who would ask the right question at the right time." I opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded 3 times. The handwriting was neat but old-fashioned. The ink had faded slightly. "If you are reading this, then you've seen the cup. Maybe even asked about it. That means you noticed. And that makes you rare. We all wait. For something, for someone. But there's a kind of waiting that changes the world, the kind done in faith, not for recognition, not for reward, just because it's right. This table is not a shrine, it's a mirror. If you see yourself in it, then you're part of the story now. Pass it forward. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. I looked up, my throat tight. Hannah was wiping the same glass she always did, as if none of this had just happened. I think, I said slowly, that whoever wrote this knew exactly what they were doing. She smiled. We all leave something behind. Some people leave noise, others leave warmth. That evening I didn't drive away. I stayed in town, slept in my cab by the river. Not because I had nowhere to go, but because for the first time in a long while, I wanted to stay where kindness had once happened, and where it kept happening still. The next morning I woke to sunlight bouncing off snow, a soft golden glare through the windshield. I stretched inside the truck's cabin, the smell of coffee from the cafe already drifting across the street. For a brief second, I imagined I'd dreamed it all. But when I stepped outside and saw the cafe window, the truth came gently back. The story, the table, the letter, the stranger, the boy, the mother, the silence. I pushed open the cafe door one last time. It was quiet. No customers yet, just Hannah and the soft hum of a morning radio. She was already preparing the cup for table 3. Without asking, she poured me a fresh coffee and nodded toward the window seat. We didn't speak for a while. It felt like everything had already been said. Then I stood up. I should get back, I said. Real world's waiting. She smiled. The real world is everywhere. Just depends on how you see it. I hesitated. Would it be all right if I left something? She tilted her head. Depends on what you leave. I reached into my coat and pulled out a small metal key ring. Hanging from it was a tiny silver compass, something I'd carried in my truck for years. It had scratches and dents and hadn't worked properly in ages. But it had been with me through storms, breakdowns, border crossings, and sleepless nights. I placed it on the windowsill beside table 3. Hannah looked at it for a long moment, then nodded. You're not the first, she said, but yours might be the one someone needs next. I smiled. As I stepped outside, I glanced one last time through the window. The sunlight now touched every table, but table 3, with its cup, its compass, and its silence, still felt like the heart of the room. I climbed into my truck and turned the key. The engine rumbled, steady, and just before I pulled away, I whispered to myself, pass it forward.